Hey, this is Mandu here from NoSleepCreative. Today we'll learn how to animate a preview animation using the motion trails animation preset we built in the previous expression tutorial. If you haven't already, please check it out. And I hope you love the show today. Alright, so in After Effects, let's create a composition that is 10,000 by 1080. If you're working with the project file I provided, I created this composition along with this circle shape layer for you. And the first thing we want to do is to press P, right, onto a circle shape layer so you can create your own. It's about 150 pixel. And then we're going to set a keyframe down and set the X value to be negative 300. And we're going to move it to the first frame. And then we are also going to set a keyframe down at frame about 200, right? And let's have it exit the right side of the screen. So 10,000 by 300. So we get one straight line. So it's looking kind of boring with just one straight line. We can actually modify the path animation by using a pen tool. So press G, right? Or use the pen tool. And you can actually, I'm just clicking and holding one point. It's going to undo that. So just click and then drag and you can adjust the tangent to whatever design that you want. So I'm going to move it like that. And if I just scrub through the timeline, yes, it's moving accordingly to my shape. And just note that it also sets the keyframe down. So I could easily, even though I didn't make any modification here, if I just use a pen tool and click in the middle, right? Notice there's a middle keyframe over here. So, but I don't want that. So let's delete that. Just something to keep in mind. And let's right click, new, create shape layer. We're gonna create a trail, and we're gonna set this to be blue and rename it to be trail underscore one. And we're gonna make use of the animation preset that we created in the previous tutorial, which is also provided in this tutorial project files as well. And it is called NSC Motion Trails version 1. So I'm gonna click on it. You might get an error if you're working, if you're just building everything from scratch. And basically it's just asking you what's the target layer. But you can, all you have to do is just select the target layer, right? And you can see that the trail immediately appear. So I'm using Command Shift H to hide the layer control, and you can see it's working. And if I want it to be shorter, let's make it about 40 actually. And I want it to be thicker, so let's set the stroke weight to be 15. And so, right, it's playing. And what I'm gonna do is so somewhere around frame 140 is where we're gonna kind of where the scene ends and the camera animation stops. We're gonna set the trail length, set a keyframe down for trail length. Press U to get to our keyframes and go down to about frame 180, and then let's set the trail length to be about 0 over here. So let me play it in between here, right? So as it goes, reaches the end, it's just going to animate out like that. All right. So we want to repeat this whole process for our other tree shape layer. So I'm going to select both layer, and then I'm going to hit Command D. I'm going to shift it down, and instead of hero 2, let's call this circle underscore 2. And we're going to go into our trail underscore 2 and select, that rename shape layer. And instead of starting, and then for the keyframes, instead of starting at 40, starting 40, we can change it to 30. We just want to be a shorter. And now we need to modify, because right now they're overlapping. So we need to modify the keyframes. So I'm going to just delete the in-between keyframes and have it a straight line. And instead of actually using the pen tool and just adjusting the animation path, we are going to use the sine wave function to kind of to automatically generate wave motion. So in the previous tutorial, we learned how to write an expression to create wave motion using the sine function. And we're not going to write any expression today. We're just going to actually use an animation preset. So if you want to, you could refer back to the previous tutorial, but I was able to save whatever I wrote previously as an animation preset, and it's called NSC underscore post sine single, right? So if you just apply onto a shape layer, and notice it's kind of just ping-pong left and right, right? And then if I want it to be more, I can increase the amplitude in my effects panel. So, and then if I want to be faster, maybe I can increase it, the velocity slider to 1. I generally never go past 1, so 0.5 is fine. And then maybe just, at some point I want to change the phase, right? I want to change, kind of just want to offset it just to create some variance. I can just shift the phase offset. Or if you need to, you can set the velocity to 0, and you can animate the phase to control this, have more control over the speed, right? Right. If I play it, there's no animation. So animating the face is one way to do it. And then what I want to actually bring to your attention is this checkbox called sine X or Y. So I'm going to click on it. And instead of, having a wave motion um, going left and right, it's going up and down, right? So, in case you're working in a vertical comp, maybe this would be uh, suitable for your project. Okay. So, yep. So just know that. And you can see there's also a circle checkbox over here. So you click on it, it's just going to animate in a circle perpetually. We're not going to use this for this project. It's just something I thought I'll share with you guys. All right, so now let's go back into our main composition with the circle underscore 2 shape layer selected. Let's go to animation, apply animation preset, or we can go to recent animation preset and click on the first one over here. And you apply, put in all the effects for me as well as the expression onto my position property, right? So nothing's going on right now because we need to check on the sine or x. So it's just gonna add the sine wave function to the y value instead. Okay, and it's going a little bit too fast, so let's set the velocity down to be 2.5. And you can see, right, it's just going perpetually in a wave. Okay, that's interesting, and we can actually, have more fun with it. So let's set a keyframe down for the amplitude slider over here. Let's set it to be about 0, and then about frame 50, let's have it to be about 200. And let's play it. So you can see that, all right, let me just solo this layer so you guys can see it properly. So you can see that, it's kind of start off like straight and then it slowly bends to create like a wave. And of course, you can set it to be a higher value to notice the difference. So I want it to start out a little bit subtle, right? And what we can do next is to actually reduce the size of this circle down to be about 10%. Okay, and let's play it. So, and we also want to reduce. So the stroke is kind of too thick right now. We can go into our stroke width. Let's set it to be about 5. Right, so that's a good size over there. So our second set of circle and trails is done. And we are just going to repeat the process 2 more times. So let's select the last 2 layer, Command D, and then let's go to our trail layer, set it to be circle underscore tree. And maybe for the circle, the third circle, I want it to be a white fill instead. And so I'm going to click OK. All right, so with circle underscore tree selected, okay, instead of, changing the values over here or moving the keyframes, we can just, change the face offset and then to kind of get variance immediately. So, it's pretty instant. All right, I'm going to play it from the start. You can see, right? Because they're not overlapping because I changed the face offset. But still, I will still want to give a little bit more love to this animation over here. So let's have it change it up a little bit. So maybe for the amplitude, let's start off about 200 and then maybe we can have it go into 400, right? In the middle, I mean, at about frame 50. So it start off, it's already having a wavy motion and then it has even more higher amplitude. Okay. And the last thing we want to do is to, again, let's repeat the process. Select the last 2 layer, duplicate it, and then select trail 4, and let's set it to be circle underscore 4, and maybe this circle can be even smaller. So let's set it to be about, or maybe, let's set it to 15. Let's make it bigger. Okay. And we can scrub the face offset. You can change it to any value over here. And let's press U. So maybe for the amplitude slider, right, we can set it to be, yeah, let's have it start at 200 to, instead of going from small to big, let's start off with, let's go with big to small. So 200 to 100. And let me stretch it out to be about frame 130. Okay, nice. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is to select all circle layers. So you can click on the label and then select label group, and it's all, it's gonna select all the red label layers, which is all our circles, and press P and get to our keyframes over here. And we're just gonna offset, right? Let's have some of this circle, reach the end of the screen faster, so it doesn't. So there's some variance over here. So let's play that. Feel free to fine tune it however you want. All right, so let's just say I'm satisfied with this animation, and let's get into stylizing the stroke right now. And the first thing we can do is to, let's see, let's duplicate the trail number one over here. Actually, let me just scrub over here and zoom out a bit. So actually, I'm going to solo it as well so we can see it clearly. And in my preview animation, I actually had three trails coming out of uh of the hero circle. Let me label the hero circle green. So the second trail is actually dotted, and we can go into open up our shape layer and just go into our content over here. Open up shape, get to the stroke, and then we can go add dashes. So we can't really see right now because it's overlapping. So to counteract this, we can add a twist shape operator, right? And then you can see that it's just twisting it at a certain degree. I'm gonna set it to be about 5, something subtle. And then we can reduce the stroke width down to be 10, so it's not so thick. And we can reduce the dash down to 1 and click on the plus so we can add a gap. And maybe you want to increase the gap. And it's still too thick for the stroke width. I set it to 5. So that's not bad. Okay. So for a third trail, let's do it again. Let's Command D on trail underscore 5. And then we are going to go into content and we are going to change the twist angle, maybe to be something about 15 so we can actually see it. Let's actually turn off the dashes so you can actually just, click on I button over here. And we're just going to play around with taper. So you can go into, right, into taper over here and set the end length to be either, depending on where you want taper. You want taper the back or you want taper the front. So I'm going to do start. All right, I want it to be kind of smaller at the tip over here. And then what I'm going to do next is to kind of actually make this animate the stroke width become bigger as it reaches the end of the animation. So somewhere around, yes, actually frame 115. So as it reaches about frame 140, I am going to have it increase the stroke width down to be, yeah, something like this. Okay, so next I'm going to stylize the appearance of this tapered stroke right here. I'm going to actually unsolo the other layer so we can just see this stroke over here. And I'm going to apply a series of layer style using animation preset. So in the project files that you download from Gumroad, you receive this set of animation preset. I'm going to select the one called Faux 3D underscore stroke. You can see, I get some sort of slight shading over here. And that's because we still need to modify the settings. Usually I have a series of layer styles that I build and collect, and then after that I will always just reuse them and just change the settings a little bit. So over here, right, maybe we want it to be kind of purplish at the back, and over here I want it to be blue. So that's looking kind of nice already. Maybe let's have it brighter so it doesn't blend in with the background, something like that. So we know within seconds we just stylize the stroke like that. So I always advise people to build their own layer styles and or like animation preset, just have their own library of animation preset. So with that, the stroke is done. Okay, so now that that rendered properly, it's looking nice, and you do notice that this stroke is very stiff because it's just twisting the path animation from the hero circle. So if it's straight, there's not really much going on. It's gonna be like this. So what I should have done maybe is to kind of add some bend before it kind of goes flat for the hero circle over here. So actually, let me just do that. Command Shift H to bring up my layer controls and just shift it like that. So okay, yeah, maybe just go downwards, and let's maybe have this go higher up. So that's more variance. So the more hues and valleys that you have, the more interesting your shape, your path will be, or like more natural. So I'm gonna add 1 point over here. Okay, so that's not looking so bad, but we're not gonna see the whole frame of the whole stroke, so we don't need to be that concerned. The one thing I noticed is that I don't really want the trail to be colored. When we first start out, I want it to be white, and then after that it becomes colored. So we can open up our layer styles, our shape layer, and then we can set a keyframe down for the colors. So maybe at the end, yeah, about frame 140, we can have it colored. and about 110 before that. Let's go to edit gradient, just open it up and set both of them to be white. Okay, and I'm gonna just go play this frame over here. So it's gonna be white, and then it's gonna grow and then color itself. So maybe that's a little bit too slow. Let's just move the keyframe closer together. I'm gonna unsolo it, and then I'm gonna play it again. All right, so that's looking pretty nice. And next thing we want to do is to stylize the sphere hero circle over here. And as always, let's go to animation, apply animation preset, and go into that layer style Fox 3D yellow, right? The reason I'm relying so much on animation preset is because I don't really want to focus. I want to focus on animation here, and also just the process of like speeding up your animation workflow or design workflow. So once we've done that, let's actually add the emoji face onto the sphere over here. So how I did it is that I have this emoji texture, right? So I'm gonna just, and I have some mask on it. So I'm gonna just remove the mask, and it's just a simple emoji that I download online. And the composition is 2000 by 1000. So because we're gonna map it spherically, so I'm going to undo my mask. So and I got the facial features, right? And I'm gonna just go up to my comp over here, drop the emoji texture, and it's in the middle of the composition. And what we want to do is to get press P on the emoji texture, option click on the stopwatch, and pick whip it onto the position of the hero circle, so it'll always follow it like that. See, we could have parented, but then I wouldn't get what I want to do next is to go into layer, transform, auto orient, and set it to orient along path. So it makes sure that it's kind of like perpendicular to the circle, and we have to rotate it a little bit. So I think it was, yes, negative, rotated by 90, and then let's reduce scale to be 35. So that's looking a little bit big, but that's okay because we are going to add in a CC sphere effect, and then kind of just give it a 3D. We're gonna rotate it in the y-axis over here, right, to make it look like this is like a 3D emoji ball. So we can set a keyframe down for the rotation Y. Let's press U to get a keyframe. So let's have it start somewhere. Okay, so let's just say this is final frame, right? So let's set it about frame 150 and go somewhere here. And let's go set it to be about, I think, 110. So let's zoom out. And you notice that even though I rotate it to be, kind of be the back of the sphere, we still see the emoji over here. And that's because, it's rendering, both the inside and outside, and it's just transparent. There's no other textures, right? There's no background. That's why it's looking like that. So we have to render just the outside, and you can see that it's gone. And so maybe we want to do 120 so we don't see any even bits and pieces over here. Okay, so let's set the rotation to start at negative 120. And we also want to go into the shading. So let's go over here. And we want to reduce the shading because I want to keep it flat. Actually, that's looking fine. Yeah, that's okay. So let's make it a little bit darker. So let's add in the curves, and let's just push it downwards like that. Okay, and let's play it. Let's zoom out and play it. So as it reaches near the end, it's gonna rotate itself, right, like that. So one thing I noticed is that it's not matching up the circle over here. You can see that there's some weird overlap. So let's increase it to be 38. That seems to solve the problem. So if you're using, make sure to change the values properly. All right, so this seems to be working until we reach this frame. It kind of looks like super dark. Oh, so that's why earlier on I mentioned that. Let's turn off the light intensity down to 0, actually, and basically everything to 0. Let's go to shading and set ambient to 100 and set everything else to be 0, right? So, this looks more natural. Okay, and with that, this scene is animated and we can actually start our compositing and camera animation. So what we're going to do is to create a new composition. Let's make it full HD. Okay, and I actually call this com. All right. So next, I'm going to drop in my start demo com over here. I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees, negative 90 degrees, and go to Window, Align, and let's have it, stick to the bottom. Command Shift H to show our layer control, right? So our com is as aligned to the bottom, and we are going to create a background as well. And so hit Command Y. It's called this BG. I am going to do the same thing. It's aligned to the bottom. And I'm going to drop in two effects. The first one will be a gradient ramp. And then the second one will be a curve. Okay, so now we don't, and then let's swap the color for the gradient ramp. We want it to be start lighter, start dark, then to light. And you can actually change the color of ramp by using a curve. So I'm gonna actually set it to red and just reduce it. So we can't see it right now. So let me go back to the gradient ramp and swap the colors so you can see it. So you can see the gradient is there, and I want it to be less greenish. So let's go to a green channel over here and just reduce it. So I just want to get a very nice blue, and we can go into our blue channel and just raise it up like that. Okay, so something like that seems to work. Of course, you can always just change the colors just from the start ramp and not use a curve. But I'm just going to show you that technique. So I'm going to just swap the colors, right? And I'm going to toggle the switches and make both of them a 3D layer. Right click, new camera. And then I'm going to select one node camera, 35mm, press P, and I'm just going to set a keyframe down here. So at frame 100 and 80, let's have it go up the y-axis. So actually, let's reduce the y-axis to go up, up, up. Okay. So maybe let's put it about negative 7,000. And let's play it and see what happens. So there's no animation going on because, my background is covering my trails. So the tricky part is to kind of match up the speed of our trails to a camera movement. But before we do that, we can go into our camera, let's press UU, and we can get to our camera options, our zoom settings, and we can set, let's just say this is the final zoom, and let's have it zoom out a little bit more so we can see more of the trails, maybe 1,300. And we have to scale the background. So let's uncheck constraint proportion and scale the x-axis. And that's why we created the background in this composition over here. Okay, so it's just going to just slowly, from a zoom out state, and it's just going to zoom in slowly. And we can see that at the starting frame, because we mess with the zoom, it's not aligning properly. So let's set the y-axis, reduce the y-axis like that, and we play, and you can see a outro is coming up. And what we want to do, right, is to let's see, we can actually set a easy ease, and let's play that. Okay, so that's looking pretty good, and we kind of nailed the camera movement on the first try. I had to try a couple of times before I actually got it right, but we got really lucky this time. So next thing we're gonna do is just add speed line, so to kind of emphasize that we are moving up through space. Okay, so we're gonna right click, new, and solid, and let's call this P. Oops, rename this P, and drop in a particular CC particle wall effect. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is set the birth rate down to 3.5, and then we can go into the producer, and then we can increase the radius to be about 5. So actually, let me just solo this layer so we can just see it. And let's also show the background. All right, so it's coming, it's at the bottom, so we can't see it, right? And it's also corresponding to our 3D layer. So what we want to do first is let's go into our physics, set the velocity down to 0, and then set the gravity down to 3, and you can set everything else to 0, so it does not affect. We just want to have it straight down. And let's play it, and then we can set our radius, our position Y to be higher up. Okay, so we don't get that So we get the particles at the top. All right. And what we're going to do is to go into the particle and we can set the birth color to be something bluish. So I don't want it to be too obvious. And the depth color to be, white. Or you can reverse it however you want. And you can turn on volume shading. It kind of gives some sort of shading. And you can go into the extra and then use the light direction to kind of change the shading of the particles. There's just some subtle effects too that you can play with, and that's pretty much it. All right, so now let's play it with the animation, and yeah, we notice that the speed line kind of disappear as we reaches the end. So we got to increase the position Y. Let's have it go higher. Let's set it to be about -3, and that shouldn't be a problem. But I do want the birth, it to have stop having speed line at about frame 120. So set it to be 0 over here, right? So because that's where the camera stops. So another thing to note is that the speed line appears about a little bit late, about frame 20. So we have to offset it, right? Move the endpoint and down to beyond the start of a composition. Let's put this bit beneath our animation layer. Let's play it. So this seems to be working. Suddenly the scene feels faster, but it's kind of distracting. So let's set the opacity down to be about 25. It's just I want it to be a secondary motion. All right, so that seems to work very well. And the next thing we're gonna do, just to stylize the scene even more, is to add an adjustment layer, and we're just gonna add some noise to it. So let's call this noise, and then let's drop in a noise effect, and set the amount to be about 15. And maybe that's a little bit too much, but I'm on half resolution, so okay, maybe about 10 would be enough. And that's how you animate this scene with motion trails. So we're more or less 80% there, and what you can do to refine this animation if you're following along is to go into the pre-comp and just make sure the timing lines up with the camera animation. We did a great job over here. I think the only thing is the rotation of this emoji circle over here. Maybe I wanted to have it rotate slowly even more as it hits the top of the screen, instead of having it, it stops and it goes up. So that's looking kind of weird. And another thing is that this taper stroke is looking kind of stiff. And what I can do is just to animate the stroke length to, to trim faster as it reaches the end. Or maybe I could just remove the twist shape operator. And yeah, you can download this project file that include my preview animation along with this demo I did here, and as well as the animation presets that I shown. You can try it out yourself or reference my animation process. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, subscribe so this tutorial can get to more people. As always, if you made something with this tutorial, please tag me on Instagram at @DesmondDo because I love to see what you came up with on your own. Also, if you're interested in getting better in After Effects, do check out my Master Study tutorial playlist. Alright, that's all I have for you guys. I'll see you next time.